I always knew that music would heal the world and that creatives aren't just here to make art, but we're actually here to make the world a more beautiful place and shape the reality that we exist in and actually set a precedence for our culture as society.
Welcome to the SoundBody Initiative, a place for those who sense there's something deeper happening beneath the surface, and where lived experience meets between sound, body, and soul. Here we're talking creativity, consciousness, and real-life inquiry, exploring what it actually means to be human right now. So slow down, tune in, and remember how connected we really are.
Hello and welcome to the very first ever SoundBody Initiative broadcast. I'm so excited to be here with you today. This has been something that I have wanted to put together for so long, and I'm finally getting able to do it. So thank you so much for sitting down and welcoming this deeper connection with me. If you're here, you are likely a very deep thinker and feeler, and maybe you're a conscious creative. Maybe you just stumbled across this platform and you're wondering, like, what the fuck am I doing here? And this episode is really kind of what we are doing here. What is the SoundBody Initiative? Who the fuck am I? Why are we sharing this information? And so this is a way for us to get to know each other a little bit and kind of provide a foundation for us to grow from. So yeah, I always like to start with a solid foundation. So to give us a better, to give us some more clarity around what this is, we are talking about consciousness. So firstly, what is the definition of consciousness? By definition, it is a sense of one's personal or collective identity, including the attitudes, beliefs, and sensitivities held by or considered characteristic of an individual or group. It is also a special awareness or sensitivity. So with that understanding, SoundBody is connecting consciousness by using sound as a technology for greater expansion. And to say SoundBody is more than just a philosophy, but it's a scientific understanding of how we can deepen our awareness through the use of creativity, music, vibration, and human connection. Because we're not just creating consciousness within ourselves, we're actually creating consciousness with one another in our communities and with our surroundings so that we have a greater capacity to create the reality that we want to live in. So a little bit about me. I have been a singer since birth. I've been a creative, songwriter, event producer. I grew up performing and I got into the music scene in my early 20s. And the closer that I became with my music, the closer I became with God, meaning source consciousness, divine intelligence. And music and dance really allowed me to reach these states of consciousness. And I also dealt with a lot of physical pain. I was in chronic pain that actually was quite debilitating for many years. And the only thing that would pull me out of this pain was actually music and dance. And so I didn't really understand it at the time, but later learned that that was actually me experiencing somatic release of the trauma that was stored in my body. All that time, my body was actually communicating something with me that I couldn't yet access. So, because at the time I wasn't integrating this understanding, this pain would return, despite me being able to transcend it during these states of, heightened creativity. I would always fall back into it, either a day or a couple days later. I was completely wrecked. So, one day, again, after a music festival, I was out all day dancing and listening to music. And I went home and my body was just completely shot. I was on the floor, could not move. I had, just thinking about it even brings up like the heebie-jeebies because I think that was the point where I was in the most pain I had ever experienced from that. And, I went into a state of emotional release. I couldn't take it anymore. And, from there, the pain started to subside a little bit. And over the course of several weeks and even months, and even a little bit to this day, I sat with the pain. And instead of trying to, suppress it or numb it or reason why it was there, I really just started to listen to it. I started listening to my body and I started asking my body to give me the answers to why this was happening to me. And the the response shook me. I started to be flooded with these repressed memories that I didn't know had existed, even though I always had this strange sensation in my body that was so familiar to them. And, that realization and that remembering and the emotional release that came with those memories immediately started to melt my pain. I went from being in a state of level 10 debilitating pain all the way down to like a 3 or 4. And then over the course of, this period of remembering and dealing with those emotions, that pain just gradually melted away more and more to where most of my days I function without any pain. And that's not to say that I'm perfect and I'm completely healed or this is some kind of magic answer, but it fucking helped a lot. And that really began my journey into the science of somatics and the understanding of how vibration works within the body, and really taught me that the body is this gateway to the subconscious that a lot of us are bypassing, and realizing that trauma is not just the stories that we have mentally playing out, but it's actually a somatic experience that's stored inside of our tissue. So, long story short, that took me into the science of sound and using vibration as a tool for healing. And yeah, at that point, I was still in the traditional music scene and I was, in these states of essentially ecstatic dance. I was having these visions of music and movement as these ancestral gateways for us to tell our stories to future generations. I don't know about you, but I am constantly having these visions of like societal collapse and the end of humanity. And, it's not the first time, this wouldn't be the first time that something to that degree happen. We've seen civilizations be wiped out many times throughout history. And oftentimes those stories that have been written have been erased. So, yet somehow, the wisdom from those civilizations is still passed down, and that's not passed down through text often. It's many times passed down through songs, traditions, dances, rituals. And so, the more clearly these visions came to me, the more I realized that, this was our duty as artists, as musicians, as creatives, as conscious beings to share our stories through vibration, through music, and through dance. And Yeah, and with that realization, the more that I worked in the traditional music scene, the more and more I became turned off. I just became so disillusioned to the fact that, music has this innate ability to bring us all together. Yet when we are, all coming together in these environments that are quote unquote traditional within the music scene, a lot of it surrounds emotional bypassing, it surrounds chasing highs, getting wasted, and completely detaching from the connection that we all came together to experience in the first place. And I say this not from a state of judgment, because certainly I have been there. I have chased that high many, many times. And I have numbed myself out many, many times. And ultimately, it did not lead to fulfillment or success. And so, this is just me sharing my story. And I know there are a lot of people in that space who are searching for that deeper connection. And again, that's why they keep coming together in these spaces. But then when they meet, connection is suffocated by the toxicity of that industry. So, for me personally, I always knew that music would heal the world, and that creatives aren't just here to make art, but we're actually here to make the world a more beautiful place and shape the reality that we exist in, and actually set a precedence for our culture as society. And, and from that understanding and from that belief is where the Sound Body initiative, really came from. It came from this desire to communicate these experiences that I was having, to help others tap into these states of consciousness that I was so gratefully receiving when I was tapping into my creativity and when I was tapping into my higher states of awareness using music and dance as tools for that transformation. And like I said, really bridging the somatic gap between mind and body and experiencing the profound healing benefits that came from those experiences. So I started working in the conscious music space and doing some sound healing and music medicine and getting into facilitating ecstatic dance workshops with some other incredible teachers and learning so much. And, creating this music led ecosystem is really what started. Started forming those relationships and created a foundation to build this community around. And really, this community is about an understanding that healing, creativity, and consciousness are not separate. And it's designed to help people connect with that deeper intelligence while using sound, music, movement as access points for healing. Healing really comes about when we shift our perspective. When we shift our perspective, this is how we create the reality that we want to live in. So, in shifting that reality, sound body is not just poetic, but it's also literal. So, the body is a resonant chamber. It houses our vibrations through our breath, our voice, our heartbeat, all of the communication, the vibrations that are happening between our cells. So sound is the vibration, the frequency, and the resonance, and body is actually a living intelligence. And it's not something that we bypass, but we actually use it as a form of consciousness and understanding. As humans, we are biologically designed to respond to rhythm. We are human pattern recognition systems. Everything we do on a subconscious level is based on our ability to recognize and identify patterns. That's why we get into these stuck states, because our subconscious, we kind of form these beliefs and identify that, oh, this is how the world works. And so our subconscious will seek out those repeating patterns in order to affirm our state of existence. So with that in mind and with that understanding, I've always had this innate desire to question everything, question my reality, question authority, and even question myself. And so I always like to look at things from multiple angles. Is this just me and my pattern conditioning, or is this reality? And what are the other patterns that are around me that I'm maybe not recognizing? Integration happens when we stop bypassing one side of the story. And I find that's where a lot of society gets stuck. And that's why a lot of us don't move forward, is because we're only looking at things from our individual perspective instead of taking into account that there are many angles from which consciousness sees and expresses itself. So, healing isn't just about feeling good, it's about increasing our capacity, because true consciousness includes all of the things, not just states of ecstasy and joy, but it also includes states of grief, confusion, um, rage, tenderness, awe. And that's the human experience. And that is the pathway to gaining deeper understanding, to look at these states of consciousness from a non-judgmental perspective. So SoundBody really invites others to see the full spectrum of our human existence and remember that perspective shifts our reality. So, with these episodes, I have decided to include a music mix that kind of supports the topic or theme of each episode. And this isn't just a bonus, and this isn't just because I love music and I love to dance, but also because music is part of the medicine. This is part of the transmission, because music activates more regions in our brain than any other stimuli. It actually has the ability to reveal what's already there. You can think about all the times that music has influenced or held you in ways that words just simply could not. So I'm pairing these episodes with a weekly mix for you to move to, for you to experience, for you to receive the transmission and allow your cells to communicate in whatever way that they intuitively need to respond. Because sound actually moves physical matter, just like it activates our brain. And when we release this state of non-judgment, we can allow our bodies to move to those rhythms. Vibration actually moves matter that lies between our cells, and it's able to clear space so that those cells can communicate more clearly. We use sound as a physical healing modality. It opens up passageways, and it increases oxygenation of the blood and does all these incredible things inside of our body because it's actually moving things from between our cells. So, if you think of it from a toxicity standpoint, if we have all these toxins stuck in our bodies and within our lymphatic tissue, that's blocking the communication between those cells. So when we open up that space, our cells suddenly are able to communicate in the way that they're supposed to. And we're able to just allow the divine intelligence of our systems to function as they naturally are designed to do. So, music and dance is an integral part to this story, to our story and our healing journeys together. We receive messages of deeper awareness without having to do the hard work when we activate our bodies and when we receive sound and music in an intentional way. Not only that, we're also activating both hemispheres of the brain, not just by listening to music, but also when we engage our body. We are using new neural pathways and we're building neural plasticity through the movement and through the activation of our bodies. So, this is why I feel like I really wanted to pair these episodes with an opportunity for you to get up and move and just express freely and see whatever comes to you, and how you grow and how you can expand your consciousness through your own innate abilities. So, that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit of the foundation on, how we're going to grow together on this platform. I am incredibly honored to be able to relay this message and tap into my higher calling and connect with all of you so deeply. And when you are listening to these episodes, and especially when you're listening to this week's mix, I really just want you to trust the sensation, trust your inner knowing, and, ask yourself what becomes possible when we stop trying to transcend the body and we actually just start to inhabit it. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in, for being, for thinking, for feeling. I hope this episode sparked something deep inside of you, and I hope that you carry that spark into the rest of the week, into the world around you, and understand that you are here for a reason. There's so much more greater than us, and I'm so excited to be on this journey with you. So, until next time, my friend, keep up the light.
If you're listening to this broadcast, it means that you are a leader for a new way of living as humans. Hitting follow and subscribe doesn't just support me as an independent, but it supports our collective evolution, because the more people that tune into this content, the more it can reach to broaden our awareness and expand conscious thought. Plus, don't forget to integrate this week's music medicine into your practice, because the body is the gateway to your subconscious. You can find me on YouTube at JRio Music or SoundCloud at Jessica Rio Music, or simply by searching SoundBody Radio. If you love listening and tuning in, please reach out to me on Instagram to share your thoughts at SoundBody Initiative, and let me know what topics you want to expand upon in the next show. So remember, this isn't just a podcast. This is a transmission and a gateway to your own higher calling.